friends. Welcome to the LeggLife podcast. My name is Adam.
My name is Sherry.
Sherry Beth, what episode is this?
130.
So, I'm going to be honest, you guys. Our 130th episode is going to be a bit of a heavy one.
Yeah.
But I think it's a bit of an important one.
I think that it's something that we are all going to experience personally and people that we love.
Like our community around us.
Yeah.
This is a part of life. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
So the things we're going to talk about today, we've actually talked about a lot in vlogs and in podcasts, kind of in bits and pieces. But this is going to be just sort of a full discussion on this topic, and I'll kind of get into it here in a second what we're talking about. Mm-hmm. But I do want to let you guys know, on the wall behind us, our HOA is doing some work. So
on the outside wall.
On the outside wall. So if you hear some banging, some noises, just ignore it. We're going to do our best to record this and ignore it as well.
Yeah.
So here's what we're talking about today. Essentially, how to help when your people are hurting.
Right.
So I think it was a little over a week ago, a good friend of ours sent me a message on Instagram. A friend of hers lost her husband suddenly and unexpectedly. Mm-hmm. And as you can imagine, all of the feelings around that, all of the emotions around that. And our friend asked a question that I love so much because of just the heart of kindness behind it.
Yeah.
She basically said, "Do you have any advice for being there for her? My heart hurts so bad for her, but I don't want to be a burden." And as I read her words, I just thought a couple things. First of all, I thought how relatable that was.
Yeah.
Like, we have been in that situation.
Yeah.
In fact, honestly, over the last few years, we've had a lot of death around us. Too much. And I hate the fact that this is a topic that I kind of feel like we've gotten, I don't want to say good at, but we've gotten some knowledge in.
Right. Yeah, we were talking earlier. I wish I didn't know how to answer this question.
So do I. And isn't that...
Unfortunately, we do.
And that's the thing is that, like, I wish I was ignorant about this topic.
Yeah.
But all of us have got to get good at this because, unfortunately, I do believe that this is a part of life.
Yeah.
And it's not just when people close to us or when people close to our friends pass away. It's any major catastrophe, major loss, any of that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So that's what we're going to talk about. How in the world do you help when your people are hurting? We're going to pull from kind of our own stories, our own experiences. Also pull from, through work stuff. I've walked with a lot of families who have gone through death. Mm-hmm. And so just kind of pull from different areas. Just a reminder, we're not experts in this.
No.
We are simply going to share our experiences and the things that we have found helpful for us.
Right.
So, Sherry, even as we were talking about this earlier, yeah. We were kind of going through, making some notes, things we wanted to make sure and hit. You were already kind of feeling it.
It doesn't take a lot for me to cry, and even just kind of discussing this topic and transporting myself back into my feelings around this made me tear up a little bit. So I don't know that I'm going to get through the podcast without crying, but that's just who I am as a person, so it's all right.
and that's actually where we wanted to, or no, I take it back. That's actually where I wanted to start. Because I think that this is really important. Yeah. And the first thing I want to say is not to hide that.
Right. Don't hide your emotions.
There are times that our tears validate the pain and the loss of others.
Right.
I understand that sometimes it's like, oh, I want to be strong for them. I want to like keep it together, or like they have so much going on. I don't want to like add to that. When there is loss that evokes emotion, it is okay to show that emotion.
Right. I think that it's okay to be sad with the person who is sad. I think that that validates their feelings.
We grieve with those who are grieving. Our heart breaks with those whose hearts are breaking.
Right. And
it's okay to do that. Now, with all of these topics, or all of these kind of points we're going to touch on, I do want to remind you, and there's some of these that will kind of touch into this. What you don't want to do is do things in such a way that draw the attention back to yourself.
Right.
There are, there are times and there are people, and most of us probably have like a name or a face that pops into our head when I say this, where it's almost like they try to one up you on grief.
Right.
And it's like they make it about them in their grief.
Right.
I'm not talking about that. That speaks
Correct.
to different things.
Yeah.
Different issues at play for sure. But if you are with a friend, I think about this situation that our friend messaged us about. This woman lost her husband suddenly. An appropriate response is tears.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
that is an appropriate response. When your friend's heart is breaking, let your heart break too.
Correct.
It validates their pain. In fact, can I talk about a spiritual thing for a second?
Yep.
I promise you, this is not going to be like a Pastor Adam kind of podcast. But we hadn't talked about this before, but I was reminded, I might have shared this topic on a podcast before. Even in like the life of Jesus, we think about Jesus, who had a close friend of his die. Mm-hmm. And Jesus is going back, and we know the end of the story. Jesus ultimately ends up raising his friend back from the dead.
Right. And he knew he was going to.
Jesus knew he was going to raise his friend. But as Jesus is going back, the loved ones of this person come to Jesus, and they're basically like, if you only would have been here, this wouldn't have happened.
Right.
Right? And so they are deep in grief because their loved one has died. And what Jesus doesn't say is like, you guys, why are you crying? I'm about to go fix this. He doesn't give them like just words. He doesn't tell them like, oh, what are you worried about? He's going to be with me in heaven for eternity. Jesus weeps.
Right.
Right? It's the shortest verse in the Bible. Jesus wept. Even though he knew that he was going to fix it, even though he knew that ultimately it was going to be better, when Jesus saw the heartbreak of his friends, his heart broke and he wept.
Right.
So should we.
Correct.
And I think that letting our emotions be present, even with the brokenness of those who we love, is an okay thing to do. So don't hide that.
Right.
The other thing, or not the other thing, the next thing we have is not to be absent or silent.
Yeah, I think that it's important to, and I understand, wanting to give people their space or whatever, but I think that you can give people space to grieve in whatever way they need to and still be present with them. You can send a text. You can, there's all kinds of things so that they don't feel like they're alone in it. Even if they don't respond to the text, they can see it and they know they're not alone. They know they're being thought of, and I think that's important.
When you were sick, think back a few years. Mm-hmm. During that time, you received lots of messages.
Yep.
Those messages from friends, simply just like, hey, thinking about you, love you, praying for you, checking in on you, were those messages a burden?
No, and I couldn't always respond. I didn't always have the energy to respond, especially in, very detailed descriptions of how I was doing. But just knowing that people were thinking about me and praying for me made it less lonely.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time alone, and because I couldn't leave the house and I couldn't get out of my chair, and it just, just getting those text messages really just made me feel less lonely.
And I think that is so important. So this question, the don't be absent, don't be silent, to me it speaks to the second half of our friend's question. And I just love it. It's like, I want to love her, but I don't want to be a burden. None of us really want that. It's like, my goodness, already carrying such a heavy load, and I don't want to add one single thing to that plate.
Right.
But the reality is that I love you. I'm praying for you. I'm here for anything you need. Those words are not burdensome words.
Right.
Here's the thing. Don't expect a response.
Right.
If you get a response, amazing.
Great.
But send words and be an encouragement, expecting that they may not be able to respond. And their lack of response has nothing to do with you. It simply has to do with the fact that there's just so much they're dealing with right now.
Right. They don't have the capacity necessarily to answer. But I think, like I said, just getting those text messages, or even just, I didn't answer phones often, but getting a phone call from somebody, even if I let it go to voicemail, was just, I know that they're thinking about me and I appreciate it.
Yeah, I think that's really important, because that can be a very lonely time. Mm-hmm. And here's what's so strange about that. I'm going to tie it to kind of our next point, is that it can be really lonely, even though the short-term window after something like a death or during something like this, there can be a lot of people around.
Yeah.
I think about when somebody loses a loved one, all of the people who rush in, right? All of the friends from current and past, family members. It can be a time when everybody feels like there's just a lot of people around.
Right.
Yet it can also feel very lonely.
Yeah.
And so I would just say, don't be absent. Don't be silent. Your words will mean a lot. In fact, I would argue that your absence and your silence will be more hurtful than your words of love and of care ever could be.
Yeah.
And so moving on to that next one, this, in my opinion, is the most practical thing that we can do for our loved ones who experience loss. Mm-hmm. That is, be in it for the long haul.
Right. Especially immediately following, something like this where, it's very sudden. I think that there's a lot of people that rush in, but what happens in 2 weeks and 2 months and whatever when they go home?
And that's the thing, is that
you are still dealing, like they go back to their lives and you will never.
They go back to their normal and you no longer have a normal.
Right.
Your normal is gone. Right? Think about that. Like, everybody else has returned to their jobs. They've returned to their life. They've returned to their routines. And you are left.
Right.
Without normal. And so I think that can last for days. That can last for weeks. That can last for months. I mean, all of us have seen, like, there's meal trains. And just so you know, I'm not knocking those at all. Those are so important.
Right.
But a lot of times there is a lot of help in the short term. And there's this moment a few weeks down the road, and the phone has stopped ringing, and there's no more meals in the freezer, and it's quiet, and you realize that everybody has left, and they've moved on with their life, and you are still deep in your grief. So for friends and family, you want to know what you can do? Yes, be there in the short term, but be committed to the long-term good of this person.
If you have to set a reminder for once a week in your phone to text this person, or, set it to never expire until you feel like it's okay, until they feel like it's okay to let it expire.
There was a family, this was a number of years ago. Mm-hmm. And they... So, not necessarily a similar situation, but she lost her husband, and they had older kids. I think their kids were probably high school age. But one of the things that one of their friends did that I thought was so amazing, so this lady and her husband had kind of a routine of going to Costco together. I think it was like every Saturday. They had like a Costco date. Mm-hmm. And one of her friends knew that was one of the routines that she was really going to struggle with, because that was like their time.
Right.
And so she decided what she was going to do is she said, you know what? I'm going to invite my friend to go shopping at Costco with me on Saturdays. And she stepped in. Now, here's the thing. Is that a complete replacement for her husband? It's not. But she still has to go to Costco. Now she doesn't have to do it alone.
Right.
And she has somebody who she can do that with. And she has somebody that she can walk through the brokenness of that lost routine with.
Right. And it's practical and it's helpful.
Hey, every Saturday, let's go to Costco together.
Right.
I want to be with you in this.
Yeah.
And it's not saying like what you lost wasn't important, but it's saying that like you lost your normal and you have people that are going to be with you and around you as you rebuild what normal now looks like.
Right.
Because normal is always rebuilt. When one normal dies, in its place, something else will be rebuilt. And so be the kind of people, the kind of friends, the kind of community who are committed to the good of somebody for the long haul as they rebuild normal.
Right.
I just think that sometimes we forget that, man, 3 weeks down the road, a month down the road, when that phone stops ringing and the meals are gone, I've heard from a number of people how that can actually be the hardest part of the grief process, because that is when it sinks in that, oh, this is my new life.
Right.
That's very lonely.
Yeah.
So be in it for the long haul. Okay, next thing we're going to move on to. This sucks. Can we just acknowledge that?
I'm already trying so hard not to cry.
It just sucks.
That's why I'm sitting here silently for the most part.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
So the next one, and this is one that you have done really well. Allow them to grieve however they need to. Keeping in mind that grief is not a path that we all walk down the same.
No, and it's not even a straight, like, trajectory.
No.
It is all over the damn place. Day by day, minute by minute.
Yeah.
Yeah. Allow your person or allow yourself to grieve however you need to in that moment. It's going to look different. And I think that it's just very important to give yourself and give your person the space to do that however they need to.
So a number of years ago, you had a friend who lost their person.
Yeah, lost her husband.
And you guys were working together.
Also
suddenly. You guys were working together at the time. Mm-hmm. And kind of walk us through what that looked like, how you like tried to give space for her grief.
Yeah. Thankfully, we worked in a wonderful environment that allowed us to take time every day to go into her office and close the door and grieve how she needed to.
Yeah.
And like I said, every day it was different. So what it looked like was coffee. It always involved coffee. And some days she just wanted to talk about hair and nails and, whatever weekend plans or, whatever. There were days where she really wanted to talk about the really good parts of her marriage. There's days that she wanted to talk about how angry she was.
Yeah.
That he left.
Yeah. And I think that, like, that's the important thing. Grieve however they need to. Like, grief is the presence of all of these emotions.
Right.
It is, I am angry that he left. Here's the thing. Did he choose to leave or want to leave? No. But, like, there's that feeling like, I'm so angry you left. I'm so angry you went and did this. If you just would have done something else, you'd still be here. How could you leave me? Right? Like, all of those things. Now, she might not mean that, but she feels that in the moment.
Right.
And she needs a place to be able to say that stuff and a place to be able to process that. And then some days, a place to talk about nails.
Right.
Like, but it needs
and hairstyles and what color we should put in our hair.
and here's the thing. It's not a, kind of like what you said, it is not a beginning and end. So it's not like, okay, well, we're going to start talking about really hard and heavy grief and loss. And then eventually we'll start talking about light stuff like nails and hair.
No.
It is this weird process where it's like, man, for 3 days we've talked about nails and hair, and all of a sudden, like, she is sobbing in her office because, like, grief hit hard today.
Right.
And I just think that to give people the space, one of the things that we have in, one of the rules we have in our office where I work is if somebody in a meeting starts to cry, we have Kleenex on our table that's accessible to all of us because, the work we do is hard. We have a rule that we actually don't give a box of Kleenex to somebody. If somebody's crying, we don't hand them a Kleenex. Because one of the messages that can send is like, I don't know what to do with this, so, like,
dry it up.
Dry it up. Could you stop? Because, like, I'm not sure.
Right.
If they need a Kleenex, they can get a Kleenex. We're with them in it. But
it's on the table in the middle. Like, it's accessible.
It's there for all of us. Mm-hmm. Like, we want to be able to feel all of the emotions in the way that we need.
Right.
And giving our friends space to do that. In fact, I think even part of that, this question, like allowing them to grieve however they need to, grief doesn't just hit during business hours.
Right.
And so letting your people know, if it's 2 a.m.
mm-hmm.
and this hits hard, and you just don't want to be alone, you can call and I will be there.
There were many nights where, because, we would have our daily chats in the office, but there were a lot of evenings where she would text or I would text her or,
Because when it hits hard.
Because when it hits, and you can't plan.
You can't plan for grief, and there's no rhyme or reason.
Yep.
Yes, there are things that are harder, the first anniversaries, the first birthdays, the first holidays, the first all of that kind of stuff. But every now and then, it is like a Tuesday afternoon, and there's something that reminds you, and you just get hit hard.
Right.
Out of nowhere, with no reason.
Yep. And
so allow them to grieve however they need to, and whatever that time looks like, just keep showing up for them.
Yeah. And don't try to fix it.
And I think also Don't try to fix it. And also, I think that silence is okay.
Right.
Here's the thing. Somebody who just lost their spouse, there is nothing I can do and nothing I can say that makes this right, because it's not.
Or even remotely better.
This is wrong on every level.
Right.
I can't make it better, but like, I can be here with you.
Yep.
I can't fix it, but I can be here with you. And none of my words, none of my Bible verses, none of my encouraging cards, none of my notes fix this.
Right.
But I can be with you. And I honestly think that is one of the things that we undervalue, is just simply our presence in the midst of grief.
Yeah.
Be with your people. Like, remind them that this isn't okay, but you're not alone.
Yeah.
I think it's so important.
Yep.
One of the other things is, like, what do you say?
Yeah. And I think this is very important. And this is one of the things that with my friend kind of became the daily mantra was not how are you, because are you okay? Nope. Sure not.
No, the answer is no. How am I?
Not gonna be.
Yeah, how are you? I'm terrible.
Right. I am actually really awful right now.
Mm-hmm.
Don't ask those questions. They're just shitty questions. Ask, how is today?
Yeah.
Where are we at today?
Yeah, where are we at today? Yeah, like,
And then be with them in that, whatever it is. If we need to look up stupid memes on the internet and laugh, do it. Like,
yeah.
If we need to sit and cry, do it.
And I think that speaks to what we just talked about, the ebb and flow of grief.
Yep.
Overall, how are you? I'm terrible. Right. Like, my world just exploded and I feel like I'm dying.
Right.
Like, how am I? Terrible. But even in that, there can be a moment where they say, you know what? Actually, right now, I'm okay. Mm-hmm. Like, right now, I'm actually okay. Like, I'm feeling like I've caught my breath. And so, yeah. How are we?
Yep.
Like, how are we? How are you today? How are you right now?
Yeah.
Ask very specific, in the moment questions.
And I think be okay with whatever honest answer they give you.
And I would say, if their answer is, I'm fine, be okay with that. Don't pry.
Right.
Because
they're not fine, but maybe they just don't want to talk about it.
That's right. Maybe it's the kind of thing that it's like, you know what? I just met with estate planners. I just met with medical staff. I just met with something, and I just had to relive all of this. Mm-hmm. And I don't even have the capacity to say anything other than I'm fine. So let me say that I'm fine in the moment. Right. And you know what your response should be? I love you and I'm here for you. Yep. Like, that's it. Like, let them be however they are. Even if it's not the truth, let that be their truth in the moment.
When you're not fine, I'm still here for you.
When you're not fine, I'm still here for you. When you're fine, I'm still here for you. When you want to talk in depth in this, I'm still here for you. Yep. When it needs to be shallow and we need to look at internet memes, I'm still here for you. Yeah. Like, this entire journey, the highs and lows, the tears and the laughter, all of it, I'm still going to show up for you. Yeah. I think it's the most loving thing we can do for people. And the other thing is, like, okay, so practically, like, what in the world do you do? I think when you're thinking about this, like, what can I do? What can I do? Things that take something off their plate, not that put something else on their plate.
Don't ask them questions where they have to make a decision.
Just do it.
Even if it comes to dinner or whatever. Don't say, what do you want for dinner? Don't do it. That's one more decision they have to make.
Some of the most loving things we had when Sherry was sick. There's a few things that came to my mind. And I'm really bad at asking for help. So even going through that, I struggled with this. But we had friends who showed up at our front door with meals, basically saying, hey, I don't know if you need dinner tonight, but if you don't, put this in the freezer and have it. We love you guys. And literally we just leave.
They would come to the door, or they would literally leave it outside and then text us as they were driving away. Hey, I just left dinner outside.
Just left dinner outside.
If you need it.
And that happened so often. And that was so helpful, because here's the thing. We all have to eat. Right. You know what I mean? Like, do things like that. Drop off a tray of cookies. Drop off some brownies. Drop off something that, like,
books.
What's that?
Books. I had friends that would drop off books for me. And again, like, just text like, hey, left you a little something outside.
Yeah, not like, oh, I'm here. Hey, can I come in? Can we talk? No, like honestly, I don't have
the capacity to talk to you right now.
I don't have capacity for that. Things like DoorDash gift cards, you guys have no idea how often at the end of a really hard day, really heavy day, the thought of even going on DoorDash and like, just like figuring out what to do would be difficult. But it's like, oh, I have a DoorDash gift card. I don't even have to like pay for this.
Right.
It's like,
I can just
pizza.
pick the first thing I see and just whatever.
Chinese.
Like,
That's the thing. Like, I like literally.
I don't care. It's already paid for. Let's just get something.
Those are things that take stuff off of somebody's plate.
Right.
If they have kids, are there activities that their kids are involved in that maybe they need help with rides to?
Yeah.
It's like, hey, I know they're in soccer. Could I, do you need help taking the boys to soccer this week? Just things that would remove something from their plate.
Right.
That are going to make life easier. And I think kind of along with that, this goes back to the Costco story earlier. Invite them into, where it's appropriate, invite them into your routine.
Right.
Like if you have a friend and like this situation and she has kids, maybe invite her and the kids to now go start doing stuff with you and your kids.
Right.
Invite their family to be a part of your family, because one of the things they just lost is their family. Like, family is now changed forever.
Right.
And what you can do is invite them into yours. They can say no. Give them the freedom.
Right. And don't take offense if they say no.
Yeah, you don't have to say yes, but just so you know.
Give them the option.
We're going to the trampoline park on Saturday. If you and the boys are free, we'd love for you guys to come with us.
Or can I just pick up your kids?
Or can I pick up your kids? Do you need some time to yourself?
Right.
What do you need? And no offense, however they respond, but just keep showing up. Show up with cookies and gift cards and your presents and your texts, and love them and let them know that even as normal as being redefined, they're not redefining it by themselves.
Right.
I just think that that's how we do it.
I think so too.
I think that one more thing to kind of think about is that there is not a right way to do this.
There's not a right way to do it, but there's a wrong way to do it.
But there is that's exactly what I was just going to say. But there is a wrong way to do it.
Right.
I think that I just go back to that. Jesus wept.
Mm-hmm.
Be present in the middle of their grief.
Yeah.
Don't try to fix it.
Even if you know it's going to be okay.
Even if, here's the thing, as followers of Jesus, we believe that death is ultimate victory.
Right.
That doesn't mean that it doesn't suck for everybody who is left behind.
Right.
That doesn't mean that we don't still have these huge gaping holes in our life that will never be filled because it was the shape of that person and that person is gone.
Right. Nothing else can fill that.
Nothing else can fill that. But we can keep showing up and we can grieve with them. And as we do that, we are loving them really well. And so I think those, and here's the thing, there are 100 other things you could do. But I think that those are just some practical kind of tracks to run on ways that we can help when our people are hurting.
Yeah.
And I hate that every person who's listening to this podcast, and I hate that all of us are going to have to put some of these things into practice sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
Some people that are listening, there's probably things that we talked about that today, because you or somebody you know is going through this right now.
Yeah.
I mean, God, it sucks, but it's part of life in this world.
Unfortunately, death is part of life.
Death is a part of life.
Yeah.
So, what do you think, Sherry? Any other thoughts?
No, I'm just a big mess.
I know. It's one of my favorite things about you. I just
can't ever hide my emotions.
Well, and I think, because to me, and I feel like we talked about this recently, maybe even on the last podcast, that your emotions are present because this is something that matters to you. And your emotions are present because people matter to you.
Yeah.
And
I don't think that I have the ennui. I don't think it exists in me.
What, the what?
The ennui.
What's that?
It's just the chill, blasé.
Oh, from Inside Out 2.
Yeah.
I forgot. I actually forgot that character existed. You know what? That's really funny because when I was remembering the characters,
they were hilarious in it, but it was just I don't think that exists in me.
The character.
No.
Makes sense.
I only have high emotion.
So friends, here's what I want to know. we gave you some of kind of our tips on how to help your people, or how to help when your people are hurting. I want to know yours. So what I want you to do is go over to YouTube, hit the subscribe button, and
look up the LeggLife podcast.
Look up the LeggLife podcast. And I want you in this episode to leave us a comment with the things that you have found helpful, or that you have seen be helpful when people around you are grieving, are kind of in a season of loss or of pain. What did we miss out? What are things that you found? Because here's the thing. Like we said earlier, we're not experts in this.
Right.
We've just learned some things as we've walked down this road.
Yeah.
Others of you have learned other things as you've walked down this road. So share with us.
Yeah.
Like help us.
We all need each other to get through this.
We all need each other to get through this. And so that, and honestly, I think that that's part of it, is that we weren't meant to do this stuff alone.
Right. And if you're trying to do it alone, it's gonna suck more.
We need community. We need our
Right.
people. And it's at times like this that we need our people the most.
Yeah.
So go leave us that comment. You guys, we love you. Thanks for sticking with us through this. Again, when our friend sent me that message, I haven't been able to get her words out of my head because I've just been reminded of how it's a path we're all going to walk down, and
It's very relevant.
And let's get good at doing this so that we can love our people well.
Yeah.
All right, you guys, we love you so much.
Yeah.
We will see you next week on the LeggLife podcast. Bye.
Bye.